Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of the Pittsburgh Steelers Show on your SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Will Mastasak, also known as Accidental Zen on Twitter, and a.k.a. Bradshaw to Ben on your SteelerFury.com website. I'm joined by two cohorts, the two best cohorts money can't buy. First of all, from somewhere in Indianapolis, or the greater Indianapolis area. His name is Jeremy Coleman, also known as Smith is Smoking. How are you, sir?
Doing good, Will. Doing good.
Fabulous. And also with us on a 32-year golf holiday somewhere in the South, his name is Dom, also known as FC. How are you, sir?
I am doing well. They still will not allow me on Augusta National grounds. I cannot understand why. Indiana is a very underrated state. I lived in lovely Brown County, Indiana for a little while. It was a little piece of heaven.
Now, is Brown County named after cow, like the brown cow, or is it named after Encyclopedia Brown, who I think was also from...
Probably the most famous thing in Brown County, Illinois, would be Bill Monroe, the bluegrass singer. Yes. Sure.
And those of you who don't really know bluegrass, but you might know "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" Bill Monroe song. There you go. Well, it's who knew? It's things you learn every week here on the podcast. FC, I'll start with you. Before we talk about this week's opponent, there's obviously been some developments with the whole COVID-19 positive testing around the league. You know, last week we were like, the league's on the verge of some real problems. They continue with a couple more positive tests. Stephen Gilmore and more guys on the Titans who apparently were flaunting the rules a little bit. It doesn't seem like there's really a good solution. We don't really want to forfeit because we miss a game that way, but we deserve a forfeit. Do you have a better solution to this, FC?
I do not. If you had an organized team activity with coaches, which is being reported and supposedly going to be able to be easily verified, the Tennessee Titans got a really big problem, and I believe that you do have to begin discussing forfeits and what punishment you're going to levy against the Titans.
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy, the thing is, in a forfeit situation in the NFL, the players on the home or the team that forfeits don't get paid. That's one. And the league doesn't get paid for the game from television. I don't know. Do you see any possibility that that's actually going to be the punishment, or will they come up with something else?
But see, you make a great point there with the league not getting their money for the game. In a year where the league is really struggling for money, you know, where they can't sell tickets, I think that's the last thing the NFL wants to do. That's just like we pulled out every stop on the book thing. I've heard that they've talked about potentially taking draft picks away. I think that's the way you really hurt a team. I mean, when you take away draft picks, you hurt the good teams who try to reload. You hurt the bad teams that are trying to tank for Trevor Lawrence or, lose their top draft picks. They're going to try to get in line pretty quickly. I think the draft picks is the way to go if they want to get really serious about it. They've already established a league floor next year at like $175 million. So I just don't see them doing anything to really change that even more. And what's going to be a very difficult league year next year. I just find it really hard to believe they're going to take away money from the big pot when the big pot is struggling.
Yeah, I would think so. So FC, I heard one potential. Ed Bouchette was offering a potential solution of the teams that would have gotten the forfeit get the pick that is forfeited by the Titans. I don't think that's the worst idea I've ever heard. My idea was have the Titans play a doubleheader where they have access to their entire roster, including like an expanded roster, and basically play 2 games in one day or 2 games in 2 days. And they could deal with that as they wish. They could have, players play half the game or whatever they're going to do to make it work. You like either of those ideas?
From the player safety aspect, we don't like the second one. Can't do that. And your comments about the cap and forfeits actually made me change my mind. I think there has to be a historical penalty levied if it was an organized team activity. I mean, it's going to have to be something pretty big. It's not going to be like a death penalty or anything like that, but it has to be to the point where no team is going to even consider doing it. So maybe eliminate all 7 of their draft picks. I don't think you personally can give them to the Steelers or to another team. I just think that the Tennessee Titans maybe don't get the draft in the 2021 draft.
Sure.
As a penalty, if it was an organized team activity with coaches there where you know that you were subverting the rules and you just did not give a rat's ass.
Yeah, I could see that. I see the head coach being suspended as well. That's another thing. If they have to have a smoking gun, but if they come to determine that the coaches, were aware and helped organize it, then yeah, that's pretty bad. That's at least as bad as having padded practices when you're not supposed to, and stuff during the OTAs or whatever. But here we are, and now they're talking about moving this week's game and moving the Denver game next week, and it's already like so precarious. I can't even imagine what they'll do if they have more positive tests tomorrow. I guess this tomorrow being Friday. That if the Titans have positive tests on Friday, then it's all bets are off, in terms of what will happen, because then we're definitely getting into an extra week and all that kind of stuff. So not sure, I'm not even sure what I would do, but it doesn't feel like the league really had this great, contingency plan set up ahead of time to, there are extra players on the practice squads and stuff like that, but there's not necessarily a like built-in extra bye weeks or anything like that to be able to deal with this, which may have been a mistake. I don't know. One last question, Jeremy, on this subject, and that is, if you're the Steelers, are you worried about playing a team that's had positive tests? When Steelers have worked really hard this offseason and done a good job. They haven't even had any positive tests, knock on wood, since the season started. That's a little bit of a scare, isn't it? I mean, to think about, like, would you be all psyched to play New England or Tennessee this week? Like, I wouldn't.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's definitely a concern from a team aspect, even from an individual player aspect. I mean, yeah, you opted to play this year, but at the same time, if you have one bad apple, that's, in this case, the Tennessee Titans, I mean, I'd even be cautious about, traveling to Nashville and playing them where we don't know the extent of it yet, whether this was an egregious, attempt to circumvent the COVID guidelines for, the NFL teams this year or not. But I mean, that's definitely got to be in the back of your mind as an organization. I mean, that's a threat to the rest of your season if there was some transfer. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, the team that's coming in to Heinz Field this week, your Philadelphia Eagles, they haven't necessarily had any kind of problems with positive tests, but they've had problems with just about everything else you can have this year. FC, you think the Eagles are just not that good this year, or do you think that they have just it's a series of bad breaks with injuries and other things that they've had going on?
More of a combination of the two, if that's a possible answer.
Sure.
Had pretty bad luck with injuries. They've also had some pretty poor play at the skill positions. Walk it to me, Wentz. Bounce it to me, Carson Wentz has been a problem, turning the ball over. Decision making, holding the ball too long. But they're maybe as healthy as they've been in a while heading into this week, depending on Lane Johnson, who was in and out of the lineup last week with a sprained ankle. They should have Alshon Jeffrey back. He's out with an illness, non-COVID related. They do have some problems on the offensive line. They are starting a left tackle, Big Polly. Never played college football, played rugby. They 7th round draft pick in 2008, spent all last year on the practice squad. Yeah, it hasn't been that bad, but they could present some problems to the Steelers. But overall, their lack of success this year has just been bad coaching, bad play, and bad luck.
It's amazing. People were thinking that Peterson was one of the top 2 or 3 coaches in the NFL as recently as 2 years ago. It's amazing how quickly the tide can turn, I mean, I don't know. Are you, Jeremy? I know FC is not so high on Carson Wentz right now. The last time the Steelers played Carson Wentz, he looked pretty good against them, but it just feels like he's hit a kind of a dead zone in his career. Are you bullish or bearish on Carson Wentz's future?
I'd say I think he's going to still have a very good career. What's killing him right now is he has absolutely no protection. He's getting hit every 4 plays. I mean, it's impossible for that type of pounding to keep happening and not have something in the back of your head thinking, oh, this is the play I get hit, oh, we got to make sure I don't get hit this play, and that's a bad way for a quarterback to think, obviously. But then also, someone has got to step up and make plays for that team. No one is stepping up and making plays in Philadelphia. I think that's an underrated part of why they've struggled so much. Like FC said, Alshon Jeffrey, he's not near the receiver he used to be. I feel like he's really been robbed of kind of what made him special. I don't really think he can separate very much anymore. He's a big guy, still has good hands. But then Jalen Reagor has, been non-existent so far because he started off the year with a labrum tear, tried to come back, play a game. Now he's out for 6 to 8 weeks. Deshaun Jackson really hasn't been healthy. Arcega Whiteside, I mean, he hasn't done anything. Zach Ertz has been the lone shining star. Dallas Goedert, the tight ends. Miles Sanders has looked good when he's been out there. But, I mean, you got to make plays to your quarterback, and I don't think many guys in Philadelphia have done that so far. That's why they only have 1 win.
Yeah, and I think offensive line, FC in general, it just feels like, it's a down time for offensive linemen in the league. Like a couple of years ago, it was like there aren't enough quarterbacks to go around to 32 teams. But now I think it's the offensive linemen. There just don't seem to be enough offensive linemen to go around. This is now 4 games the Steelers are playing. It would have been 5 because Tennessee had offensive line problems as well. But now this is like four games out of the season to start where the other team has had offensive line issues. Do you think it's a league thing or just happened to be the Steelers catching the wave at the right time?
Well, to be honest with you, it starts in high school with the spread offense, carries through to college with the spread offense, and well, you get to the pro level and they've been coached into spread offense. It's the man, the player. It's the coaching. It's the style. We like the fact, pace 92 to 95 plays a game, fantasy football, basketball on grass type numbers. Well, you lose something with that, and what you lose is, the grinding classic football game. Who's the best left tackle in the NFL right now? Whoever you name, I can really disagree with, and whoever I name, you can disagree with. It's just there's not really a great one. I think that the best offensive line plays in the interior. In the NFL, I think you have some good interior players. But on the edge, no. Your offensive tackles have become power forwards that are tall, lanky, that, have to be able to play the 90 to 100 snaps, no huddle, fast football. So you lose something with that. And what you lose is the physical edge of offensive line play.
Yeah. Well, this, sticking with them, with the Philadelphia Eagles this week, though, FC, let's imagine that Lane Johnson plays. Even with that situation, still feels like this is once again a good matchup for the Steelers front seven. Would you agree?
I would. Is TJ Watt playing?
Yeah, I think they just gave him a maintenance day basically for this knee so that he can have an extra day. It sounds like it's not serious. Right.
I agree.
We could use a little bit of a dominating defensive matchup. It feels like last game the Steelers played, I know that we talked a little bit about it last week, but since you weren't here, Jeremy, you could weigh in on this. It feels like the Steelers defense played a lot better than the number of points they gave up last week because they so totally shut things down in the second half. Do you think they're going – they sort of seem due for a 60-minute game. How do you feel like they look in this matchup overall?
Well, I mean, I really like our front seven against their offensive line. It could be a very long day for the Philadelphia Eagles and Carson Wentz. I expect us to be blitzing a lot, really challenging, both tackles. Even if Lane Johnson is out there, he's not playing at 100%. TJ Watt's a tough matchup when you're 100% healthy. So I'm looking forward to that. Cam Hayward over their guards, that's another big win in my book. He can get after it. It looked like Stephon Tuitt finally started kind of getting in the groove against Houston. He made a few plays where I thought he had some quiet weeks 1 and 2. Kind of looked like he was kind of getting in the grooves. That's why I was very disappointed. The Titans game obviously got pushed back, and we had a bye week in week 3. Who loves that?
Yeah. No.
But, I mean, we're going to be well rested as where the Eagles, they're coming off a very physical game with the 49ers last week. I really like our defense. I don't think they have much offensively to really challenge the Steelers deep right now with Deshaun Jackson a little banged up, no Jalen Reagor. I think Carson Wentz could be trying to really thread some windows, trying to get the balls to his playmakers this week. I could definitely see their tight ends being very involved against our linebackers.
Sure.
That's what I would think I would try to take advantage of the Steelers right now.
So FC, we always used to say that the Steelers' biggest weaknesses on defense were covering tight ends and getting off the field on a 3rd and long. Those seem to be like 2 weaknesses that have just sort of stuck with them over time. But maybe it feels like it's been a little while since the tight end really damaged them. Is this just the sort of the improvements that they've made lately, or the last year or two, or is this something that's just different about just been lucky, haven't really caught a quarterback and a tight end on the right day?
No, they gave us some issues.
That's true.
It's still a problem until you show for a season that it's not a problem. I'm not all sunshine and rainbows about certain aspects of the Steelers' coverage. I still have some serious question marks. But at the same time, there's talent. And whenever the Steelers are playing on the same page, they are a relentless group of savages. And that's what you see in the second half. And sometimes simplifying things and keeping it basic is best. And I think that's best for the Steelers. Instead of passing off the tight end or deciding on the back, I think that they pretty much pre-read if they're in any type of man coverage. They pick up their man and they stick with it. That was proven with being exposed at times in coverage where you have Vince Williams in some uncomfortable situations, but at least they had defined roles and they weren't completely dropping coverages. So if you get out schemed early, that's okay, as long as you make the adjustments.
Yeah, it feels like, they're playing man against Carson Wentz, so that's the thing that scares me a little bit. It seems like the defense works best when the pass rush and the coverage are sort of working together, right? It's like it isn't because they have some, really one dominant pass rusher and they build everything around how successful that guy is. It's like everything seems to work together, but I fear like if you play man coverage against him, FC, you're not worried about him escaping and hurting you with his legs, because that to me is like sort of that's a real threat with a guy like Carson Wentz, because he can throw it while he's on the move, and he's not just going to be like, I decide to run and go. Do you think they'll be playing much man, I guess is my question.
I think they will, and I think they'll spy him at times. I think that our linebackers can run. I think that maybe Vince Williams would be the only one that may have issues with them. I don't think that Bud Dupree or Bush or TJ Watt will have problems running and staying with Carson Wentz. The thing that I bust Wentz balls pretty badly for a lot of things. One of the things I will not bust his balls about his heart and toughness and willingness to make plays, but I also don't see him running through many Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker tackles. We have some large lads that play with a pretty nasty edge.
Who like to hit quarterbacks. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
They hit them a lot. It's like once Tigers have the taste for human flesh, right? They can't be stopped. That's what the Steelers pass rush is like. So Jeremy, last question on this. One of the few things that the Steelers did well in the last matchup with the Eagles, which granted, it was a real eye-opener. I watched like half the game this week just to kind of get a feel for what happened last time, since the Steelers, you may not remember, lost, I think, 34-3 or something ridiculous. But one thing that they did have success with was stopping the Eagles' run game. And that was, closer to the height of their powers in terms of Peterson and all running on all cylinders there. It just didn't really feel like their run game worked so well against the Steelers' front. Miles Sanders, though, is, been playing pretty well. Carson Wentz's numbers have kind of gone down every week, but Miles Sanders' numbers have gone up. Woody High. There you Yeah, of course you would say that. You want to put a plug in for the pizza shop too while we're here?
Business pizza?
With Vinny's? Yeah.
Yes. Vinny Pie.
All right. So Jeremy, what's your take on the Steelers' run defense with Miles Sanders?
Well, I think it's been pretty good, the first 3 weeks. I don't see a lot changing there. I think a big part of what made the Eagles' ground game so effective, several years ago was that their offensive line was healthy, but they were all on the same page. So much of blocking in general is just communication among your front five. I don't think they've had that quite yet, even though they have started to open up some holes. But against Pittsburgh's veteran front, where they can one gap and two gap, I just think the Steelers are going to be in a good position like they have in these first 3 games they've played to be in a position to stop the run.
Yeah, and I think they're just stopping the run is mostly about being sound positionally, right? That's
right.
Part of it. FC, let's flip it around to the other side. In watching that game where the Steelers only scored 3 points, obviously they didn't have Le'Veon Bell in that game. He was suspended, I think. But it was amazing to me to see how much better the Steelers are now in terms of their personnel than they were 4 years ago. It shocked me. It's always a big turnover for every NFL team in 4 years, but just the quality of playmakers and players on the defense and the running back depth. A lot of things that were issues in 2016 are not issues now. I'm starting to get the impression that this team is pretty good. I don't know, in terms of this particular matchup, though. I've always had some problems with Philadelphia in terms of putting up points. And this last game, though, the 4 years ago game, Ben was nearly perfect for the first half of the game. Basically had touchdown dropped and, a couple of other issues with Marcus Wheaton. But it's like he's playing with Marcus Wheaton, Sammy Coates, the player that theoretically was Emmanuel Sanders, who was targeted once in that game. Jesse James was the starting number 1 tight end, and the running back who backed up Bell. Sorry, I've lost his name for the moment. But he was like running into bodies instead of running into holes. It was like an amazing difference. So I guess the question I'm going to ask you, FC, is: are the days of Ben and this offense struggling against Philadelphia over, or should we be tempering our enthusiasm for what the Steelers offense will do this week?
Temper your enthusiasm. Reason, we had some really bad fucking luck against Philadelphia the last few times we played them. Absolutely. I remember them throttling us in 2005, which I know is now 15 years ago, but I want to say 2005. Maybe it was 2004.
The 2008. 2004, we beat them at Heinz when they were undefeated.
Okay. It was 2008 when they throttled us. We won. I remember this. We won the Super Bowl. So it was
that was the worst. 2008 at Philly was maybe the Steelers' worst game of the last 15 years. I mean, it's right up there.
I actually remember that game 4 years ago where Sammy Coates and Marcus Wheaton was terrible. I can't remember who the back was that game.
Not D'Anthony Thomas. The one with the purple dreads. Come on, guys. We're better than this.
Purple dreads.
Amazing how he's already gone. Came from the Carolina Panthers.
Oh, my goodness. D'Angelo Williams.
Yes, D'Angelo Williams. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like my memory of him is that, they were pretty good when he was playing. They won a lot of games with him, but this Eagles game was one for him to forget.
Philadelphia's front four scares me. Fletcher Cox is, I don't care if he's top 10 player in the NFL. Every bit as good as J.J. Watt. It's going to be a different position battle, different lineup. Justin Hargrave, you have Malik Jackson, Brandon Graham. What Philadelphia also has is probably the smallest back seven in the NFL. They're tiny. Their linebackers are tiny. Their safeties are tiny. Their corners are not very big. I won't be shocked if the Steelers come out and maybe try to play big boy football, get the doubles on the defensive tackles, and try to get to the second level with Connor. I don't think that the east-west side counter tray run game is going to work. I won't be shocked if we can hold on to the ball. If there's jet sweeps, actually will work pretty nice against the Eagles with their wide nine. Jim Schwartz is going to be blitzing his balls off, starting in pregame, and he ain't going to stop until the clock shows zero. It's what he does. It's how they have to play. But Philadelphia is a fast defense that builds on momentum. When things start going bad for them, the momentum will really turn on them, and they will start looking at each other and fighting internally, and you can jam the ball down their throats.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the last time, they had almost no success running at all, but Ben was absolutely on fire. It could have been one of those days where Ben had, 5 touchdowns or 500 yards passing, that kind of, on it of Ben. But just the conspiracy of bad play around him and some horrendous officiating. And like you said, just bad luck, so maybe they're due for some good luck. I don't know. Jeremy, do you think this, my contention is that the Steelers have been basically treated the last 3 or 4 games as their extended exhibition season, where they were working on things and trying to get the run game in sync and so on and so forth. Do you have a feeling that, they're building towards being a little bit more dynamic as an offense, or do you think what we've seen so far is more or less what we're going to get?
Well, one thing that definitely looked different in week 3 from the previous 2 games was a healthy David DeCastro. You started to see the pulling running game again, where that started, I think it was the 4th quarter, where James Conner had some big runs to kind of ice that game. I think you're going to see a lot of that. I think we're going to try to go back to what we're good at with David DeCastro in there. His mobility has been a huge part of the run game, just as much as Alan Fanekas was back when he played. He's that type of player for the Steelers on the offensive line. I do think we're going to struggle a little bit. Philadelphia's defensive line, they're big and they're quick and they're mean. They really get after it. So, I think Villanueva is going to have his hands full. I think Okorafor is going to have his hands full. Both the guys in the middle, they're lightning quick, which is what Matt Filer's had a little bit of trouble with so far. He's hasn't had the greatest hand placement sometimes, and some guys have blown right by him these first 3 weeks. So I think we're going to see, there are going to be times where we're going to be pretty frustrated because it's like, man, we just gave that play up. But I think overall, we're going to have a decent amount of success. Like FC said, the front seven's big and fast, but the backers and the secondary are small. So I think if we can go man-to-man on them, I think that's where we can kind of separate what he said, play big boy football. I could see us trying to really get out on the edge where our wide receivers can block. Maybe spring Anthony McFarland. McFarland was a much bigger proponent of the game plan than I thought he was going to be in week 3. He made some nice plays when he got his opportunity. So,
yeah, well, FC, coming off actual bye, that seems to be the time when the Steelers start incorporating rookies a little bit more. Like they spend the bye week, kind of integrating them a little bit more in the offense. Tomlin made a point of saying that they didn't really do that this time because of what they didn't know they were having a bye week exactly, right? But it does sort of feel like you might see some more Chase Claypool this week, does it not?
He will. I mean, he's gonna see his packages. Same thing with McFarland. They add an explosive element to the offense. That's taking nothing away from Juju Smith-Schuster or from Deontay Johnson. It's just another weapon, another bullet in the gun for Ben. And like I said last week, when Claypool's made mistakes, they've been mistakes playing hard and fast and fundamentally correct. Mm-hmm. So the mental errors is what generally kills rookies. And Claypool's not making many. And McFarland hasn't had the opportunity to, but, he is a very talented runner.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that. And he's got some quicks. I mean, I'm just not sure how polished his overall game is, and especially against a team that you feel like is going to blitz you a lot. I worry that he's, pretty untested in pass protection. It's probably not really the strength of his game right now. I kind of hope it's a game where we see James Conner in a pass protect situation, because he seems to be the one guy out of that group that's pretty good at it. But I don't know.
I would expect to see a lot of empty.
Yeah, I mean that's the other way is you get defenders out of the middle. I mean, that definitely helps. It's funny, like we've gone full circle on this. In that 2008 game, a couple of months ago, I listened to the podcast we did the week after that debacle. And I am 99.9% sure that you said that I want to quote that the Steelers it was idiotic that they were running empty against the Philadelphia Blitz. I just wanted to say we've definitely the mentality about how it is, and I'm talking about for all of us, including the people in the NFL. It's like they're using it a lot differently the last couple of years than they did. 2008 in NFL terms is a really long time ago. But it feels like, Jeremy, that you have a really tough defensive line, especially on the interior. It feels like you're gonna try to get them with quick hitters in the middle, with some misdirection, and that feels like it's going to be a big part of this game, no?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, one thing I don't think we've really seen so far, because really I think Deontay Johnson is the guy kind of designed for these types of plays, or the wide receiver screens. Honestly, I don't think I've seen many wide receiver screens called since, the Steelers have not had Antonio Brown, because he could, one thing Brown was electric with was once you got the balls in his hands, he was impossible to catch. And I feel like Deontay Johnson's the only real true run after the catch type of guy we have on the roster. I think Juju and Claypool are both good, and James Washington are good, but they're more like strong catch receivers rather than, now I'm going to go run for 50 yards after I catch this thing. Sure. So, I mean, honestly, I thought the last 3 games, I was like, man, one thing the Steelers have not done here recently is a wide receiver screen. I think that's one thing that the Steelers could definitely use to their advantage when Philadelphia is going to play a very aggressive game. And like FC said, they're going to blitz. If you get 1 or 2 good screens called, they're going to have to back off the blitz, or else it's going to be 4 Steelers on 3 defenders, and most of the time that doesn't end well. So.
Yeah, you got to get home, or else it's going to be a big play.
Right.
I was going to ask you something out of that same question, FC. Oh, I was just going to say, wasn't it you that had the stat that Chase Claypool had the most yards after the catch in college football last year? I think that may be true.
No.
I think I pulled that up from Pro Football Focus or something like that, but yes.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying is I think they ran a ton of that stuff at Notre Dame. It feels like that sort of in my mind. I'm just thinking, especially if you have smaller defensive backs, smaller players on the edge, and you give it to that giant guy, the chances are he's got ability to do some things with it. But I don't know, FC, what do you think? What's your thought on that sort of screen misdirections? The Steelers, they're always sort of hit and miss on the ability to run screens, feels like.
Right. We were very effective with them with AB. I think Deontay Johnson could be very good. Claypool, you've got to slow defenses down, and screen game is a good way to do it. It's execution, and the offense is a unit selling the play.
Yeah, and I also feel like that wide 9 defense that they play, that the way to get into that is just that, if there's questions at the mesh point, is it going to the jet sweep? Is it going to the back with the first look? Like, the more you can make them think for a second on their way to the quarterback, feels like the better off you are. But it's not really a question; it's just a thought, Jerry. but I don't know. Like I kind of feel like there's going to be a little axe to grind for the Steelers offense. I think they were just starting to feel some momentum, and maybe it feels like this game they're going to come out and do a little bit better at that. That would, I suppose that wouldn't be a surprise to anybody. Although FC told me that expectations should be tempered, so I'll throw that question to you, FC. Do you think it's a I can make an argument for this being a really close game. I can make an argument for the Steelers offense kind of having an explosion here. Would you agree that at least that it seems possible? Either of those things seem equally possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's why we don't want to forfeit, because we never know what the hell is going to happen. Anyway, I'll give you the last thought. What haven't we covered about this matchup, Jeremy, that we should have?
Well, we kind of started talking about the run game there. I think this could be a week where you could see Garrett Watt and the fullback be used a lot more, just to get that extra blocker on a linebacker. Like FC said, their linebackers are small, fast, and quick. An extra block on a guy where he can get off and maybe get 1 or 2 blocks on the one play, that could be a big deal. But I think you could see it. The play that kind of comes to mind with me is, we talked about Philadelphia playing this wide 9 defense. My big thing is run it off tackle with a fullback. Get more blockers on one side of the field and power through that defense. That's just kind of what would stick out in my mind as something that I might try to do.
Sure. Well, to me, I in general, I think you're taking Eric Ebron off to bring Watt on, and that's what it feels like. You're taking Ebron off, or you're taking, Juju or Claypool off the field. That's rough, but I'm all for it if it works. But I don't think you want Ebron in that blocking formation. You want him out somewhere on the edge, isolated against a guy. I don't know. A lot of different ways to skin a cat. I guess we'll get back to what we think our predictions for the game are in a minute. Let's just quickly take it to our illustrious pick segment, brought to us by
Dean Blandino, Eddie Van Halen, rest in peace, sir, in Sports and Shit, where you can find your koozies, dog stuff, just about anything you're looking for swag for the Pittsburgh Steelers at Sports and Shit.
Right on. You're such a professional at reading the promo. I love it. You're reading the promo that doesn't exist. That's even better than reading the promo that's written in front of you, like giving you a professional DJ. Anyway, excellent work. Let's talk about the matchups, gentlemen. I'm going to do something different this week. I'm going to start with you, FC. What's the matchup you want to talk about this week? Let's pick one.
Oh.
I can name them for you if you want, if you don't have a specific.
No. Will Dallas beat the Giants? And don't laugh. Okay. The Giants actually play pretty good run defense. They've improved. They showed a little something against the Steelers. But if Dallas doesn't beat the Giants, does Mike McCarthy get fired?
Wow. Yeah, that would be amazing for such a short tenure. Yeah, this is Jerry Jones you're talking about. I think the guy that could get fired in Dallas is Mike Nolan, the defensive coordinator. Another week like last week. That was I listened to just by sheer happenstance. I listened to the Dallas announcing crew talking about the game, and they were just they're just audibly embarrassed with the level of tackling and poor defensive play. I mean, they were like absolutely beside themselves during the broadcast. And I feel like that's, you're like one step away from losing your gig as the defensive coordinator when the broadcast crew of homers is on your case. But I don't know. I mean, FC, are you calling your shot? Do you think? Well, you're taking the Giants in 8.5. I take it.
Oh, I am, because either Dallas is going to throttle them, or I won't be shocked if the Giants win an ugly game. But I would take the Giants in the 8.5. 8.5 is a lot in the NFL.
Oh boy, it's hard for me to believe, but the Dallas defense is pretty bad right now. But I have a feeling they'll kind of come back, and I mean the Giants are also very bad. The Giants are right up there with maybe being the worst team in the league. I am not going to go with you, FC. I want to feel the upset energy, but I don't. I'll take Dallas and give the 8.5, probably regrettably. How about you, Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to take Dallas. They have an explosive offense whenever they feel like the 2-minute drill should just be their permanent offense. That's when they put up tons of points this year. I just don't see the same with the Giants. They've struggled to move the ball, to score, and if anything, I think this could be a total shootout. But if it is going to be a shootout, I'm picking the Cowboys. Dak Prescott's thrown for 500 yards twice already this year.
Well, hey, we played the Giants. Can you name 2 New York Giants wide receivers?
Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton.
All right, Slayton. Yeah, okay. Maybe I can name them. But just they feel fairly anonymous right now, like they should be on a milk carton.
Right.
But, yeah. Ugh, ugly. All right, so how about you, Jeremy? You got a game?
I don't know who I'm going to pick. Well, I do, but the game that really intrigues me is Cleveland and Indianapolis. I think this is a really big test for Cleveland because they have not played good teams so far, but Indianapolis, I think, has the number 1 best defense in the NFL right now. Big time test because in week 1, when they struggled to run the ball and got in 4 sure passing situations as the week that they looked like absolute crap. And it's just a very big test for that Cleveland offense because the last 3 weeks they've been able to run the ball, establish some play action, finally got some Odell Beckham into the game plan last week. He finally went off on an offensive tear. First time he's done that in a long time. Kind of feels like things are clicking for Cleveland. But if they don't click early, that's what I'm looking to see. If the Colts are a real thorn in that side, because I think this is the game where we figure out if Cleveland's actually going to be a threat in the North or not.
FC, what's your take?
I like the Colts. That is the best defense, statistically and in a lot of ways, and splash plays in the NFL so far, despite the Steelers, gaudy numbers and, stuff. We're Steeler fans, so we see a lot of people don't realize how good the Colts are actually playing.
Yeah, and it's like the team. It's if they were a team like the Patriots that the Steelers always struggle with, and they were playing as well as the Colts are playing right now, we'd be all over it. But the Colts are a team that the Steelers have basically owned for a decade or more. So different kind of story. But I bigger reason. Who does Cleveland play next week?
The Pittsburgh Steelers.
That's correct, sir. Which is their Super Bowl. So I mean, this is a trap game of tremendous proportions for Cleveland. I think this is a game where the Hobgoblins are going to at least give them some amount of trouble. I don't love the idea of Phillip Rivers trying to evade Myles Garrett and the Cleveland pass rush, but I think maybe you can run a little bit on the Browns, and I think that's what the Colts will try to do. They'll try to play one of those games where they pound the rock and keep the ball away, and their defense is good enough to, if they can get Cleveland in catch-up mode, the Browns will be in some trouble. So it's only a 1-point spread. The Browns are a 1-point underdog at home, but I guess it can't really be a trap game if you're the underdog at home. But I'll just say, wouldn't surprise me if the Browns were looking ahead a little bit to the following week. That's got to be circled on their calendar, I'm sure. One more, I guess I get to pick. Let's talk about the Chargers and Saints on Monday Night Football next week. The Saints are a 7.5-point favorite against the Chargers. They announced this week that Justin Herbert would be the starter going forward. I mean, that seemed to be pretty obvious from about his fifth play for the Chargers. New Orleans to me is a bit of a mirage. Like, okay, I usually say let's see how the league looks after 4 weeks. And after 4 weeks, I'm not convinced that Drew Brees is the same guy that can really carry that team without Michael Thomas. And the Chargers are maybe a little bit better than I thought they were. I wonder if they came close to being able to play with the Chiefs. I'm wondering if they're in a position to maybe do the same kind of thing to New Orleans. So I'll start by saying that I think the Chargers will cover the 7.5 and may actually win that game. Jeremy, how do you feel?
I'd agree with you. I think the Chargers are going to cover that 7.5. Honestly, Justin Herbert has surprised me pleasantly with his play so far. He has not made, a lot of mistakes or whatever. He's made some big plays in the passing game. I was not a big fan of his coming out of Oregon, but he's sort of proving me wrong right now. Kind of eat my own words on that. But the underrated part of that Chargers team is their defense is just so gosh darn good. They've got a really good secondary, so I think they're going to match up with the Saints wide receivers. I think it's all going to come down to who's going to make a tackle or not in the run game. On both sides of the ball, got some talented backs. Sounds like Austin Eckler's a no-go this week, so it's going to be Josh Kelly and Justin Jackson, I believe, is the other back there. Yeah, okay. And then – with the Saints, you've got, thunder and lightning with Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara. They're two very different backs, but they're both very good at what they do. So I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, which is why I'm taking the Chargers. I think it'll be a little bit of a defensive battle going back and forth. Who's going to be able to run the ball better?
FC, how about you?
I believe I picked Herbert as the NFL Rookie of the Year draft day. Point that out. Not shocked. If the Chargers had Bosa, you'd be talking about them as one of the elite teams in the AFC, rightfully so.
And their safety is also done for the year, right? So
Darwin James.
Yeah,
that's another huge loss. I like Kelly. What Herbert's doing with the receivers he has. Keenan Allen's a stud. Nobody's going to take that away from him. Mike Williams hasn't been able to stay healthy. Hunter Henry's had some issues, but he's still having unbelievable success. You look what he did against Tampa. Tom Brady pulled some Tom Brady shit in the second half of that game. No one's shocked by that, but I will also take the Chargers and take the points. I am not a fan of the Saints.
Yeah, something doesn't seem right there with them. Next week, I didn't pick them this week to talk about because I'm not sure they're going to have a game, but you said the Steelers fans, we don't really necessarily appreciate what Indianapolis is doing. I think Buffalo is the team that maybe poses a unique combination of risks for the Steelers in a matchup that isn't a great matchup for them, and also a team that's playing really well so far. So I'm anxious to see what happens to them with all this brouhaha this week. But that takes us to the ultimate brouhaha, our 5-star matchup, which features your Pittsburgh Steelers. It's a 5-star matchup because we're in it. Jeremy, I'm going to start with you. Give me a prediction for your Steelers and Philadelphia Eagles. How do you see this happening?
I think the Steelers are going to end up winning pretty decisively. I think it'll be a close game to start, but I think at some point the Steelers are going to start to separate. And then when the Eagles try to play catch-up mode and we go full, blitz crazy, and start really putting the hurt to Wentz, I think that's where we're going to separate. Our secondary is due to make some plays. Minka Fitzpatrick, yes, I'm talking about you. Let's make a splash play here because you have not done so really in the first 3 weeks. The secondary has been a little bit of an issue. I think with the week off, it's going to help. Just giving them some rest, maybe shore up the communication issues it seems like they've had here in the first few weeks. But I think the Steelers are going to end up winning this probably 27-17 or something.
You almost stole my score. FC, how do you see it?
A little bit of a sweat. Ertz, Jeffrey back. They're going to have more weapons. The interstate rivalry. Steelers coming off a bye, so that could be a blessing or a curse. I'll take the Steelers 33-23. Late touchdown pass to Deontay Johnson to give us a little breathing room and settle the nerves.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I really want to pick the Steelers to crack that 30 mark. I just don't know if this is the week. I think next week is the week where they're going to light up a scoreboard a little bit. But, yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is I was feeling kind of like it was an on and off kind of a rivalry where, the Eagles crush the Steelers or the Steelers kind of win a close game against them. It's been that way, the last 4 games more or less. But there were some the game within the game last time was not nearly as bad as what the score was. The Steelers' defense is light years better than what that 2016 defense was, or the 2012 defense, which at moments showed well. But I just feel like these are two teams going in opposite directions kind of right now. And I'm not going to pick against the Steelers or for them to even really have a nail biter game until they're playing a team that at least on paper looks like it can compete with them. So I'll take the Steelers in what feels like the score sounds closer than I think the game will feel. And that's a 27-16 Steelers win. But I think it's that'll be almost a Steelers blowout, as we like to say, where, the game isn't really in doubt, even though it's 27-16. Because if it's anything like the last game, man, that the defense turns up the screws a little bit. I just felt like last week they could have played another half of football after the second half, and the Texans were not going to score again. And they weren't going to stop that 4-minute running offense of the Steelers either. They were toast by the time they hit 2/3 of the way through the game. Last words. I'll give one to you, Jeremy.
Yeah. So I think it'll be interesting, just offensive line versus defensive line. I know I've already talked about it, but I think it's going to be the battle to watch this week. No doubt about it. Our O-line versus their D-line just going at it. It's going to be very interesting. I think we're going to win some plays. We're going to lose some plays. That's how it's always kind of been with the Philadelphia defense. So hopefully we make more good plays than bad plays.
Yeah, hopefully, yes. FC, how about you, sir?
Over the last 25 years, little Woodland Hills High School in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania has put 38 players in the NFL, including 3 current players: Quentin Jefferson, defensive end, Seattle Seahawks; Rob Gronkowski, tight end, Tampa Bay Buccaneers; and Miles Sanders, running back for the Philadelphia Eagles. Most weeks I cheer for Mr. Sanders, but I don't think he's going to have a very good homecoming this week in Pittsburgh.
Well, you rooted for Jim Tomsula. That's all I really need to say. That was not a good day for him at Heinz Field.
He still owes me a can of snuff.
Yeah, there you go. And best Woody High player ever. Not in
Rob Gronkowski, Jason Taylor. No.
Not in their NFL careers. In their Woody High career, I got another one for you.
Oh, Gerald Thompson.
Steve Breston. Come on, man. Gerald Thompson.
Steve Breston was sick. Gerald Thompson. I think he rushed for like 5,000 career yards. Yeah.
5,000 career yards in high school. Yeah, that's a lot.
At Woody High, where you only get to start 2 or 3 years.
Right. You don't get to pile up those freshman statistics. Yeah, exactly.
Correct.
My final thought is just going to be, like we always say, we don't know how much longer, like when it's playoff season, you don't know how much longer you're going to have a season. You don't know how much longer you're going to have Ben Roethlisberger playing, and you're definitely not sure how long you're going to have a team that's this good, especially with all the, with the craziness of this next offseason is going to be. You think the season is nuts, Wait till next year. So I'm advocating strongly that not just you out there in the world listening to this program and on the show with me tonight, but me too, that we make a point of really appreciating what this team is. And if you need any reminders of how good this team is and we should be appreciating it, just go back and watch some old games. Watch some mid 2010s Steeler football. Watch some Tommy Maddox football in 2003. Watch some horrible quarterback play in the 90s for your Pittsburgh Steelers with that great defense. Because
what the fuck are you doing, O'Donnell?
What did Bubby Brister's the famous quote? He said, "I can outthrow him, I can outrun him, and I can outplay him." About Neil O'Donnell. Something like that. Not sure that was true, but maybe in the Super Bowl it was. Anyway, enjoy it.
Bobby says you can come see my Super Bowl ring.
Anytime. You can shine it for Denver. Oh, my God. I actually saw Bubby play in Denver that year at Mile Stadium. And, he was the same old Bubby Brister, but just with a team that was a Super Bowl team.
With Terrell Davis.
Yeah, that helps, especially in that era, right? Juicing.
Sure.
Anyway, gentlemen, Jeremy, Goldman, Dom, FC, and everyone listening to the program, everyone at Steeler Fury. As always, I'm your humble host, Will Masasak, also known as Accidental Zen on Twitter, and Bradshaw the Band on the site. Come visit us at SteelerFury.com. Check out some interesting stuff you need over there at Sports and Shit. It helps keep this podcast alive. So if you like the show, that's where to go. Gentlemen, let's talk next week after an excellent Steelers victory against the Philadelphia Eagles. In the meantime, I say, go get them, Steelers.
Go Steelers.